Santa Claus, what in the world has caused this card and, well, some other things you might want to keep an eye on to already start moving. Don't be like the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So the first thing we need to talk about over here is Santa Claus, and the OCG implications are running high. For those of you that are like, the OCG doesn't matter, strange how card prices tend to go up, even though people tend to tell me that the OCG doesn't matter. But I, once again, just want to bring that up. Now, Santa Claus over here is a very interesting case. Now, remember, this is a Kaiju class monster. Technically, I guess before Kaijus did exist. Special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field by attributing one monster they control in defense position. All right, keep that in mind. If summoned this way during the end phase, all right, of this turn, they will effectively get to draw a card. The entire big thing with this card right now is it allows you to impurely attack into this, and then you can make a Zeus. Well, the thing that has made purely one, besides Nor being a troublesome card, it has basically allowed them to turbo out Zeus. Now, Zeus is limited to 1 in the OCG, but that's not stopping players from taking a look right now at Santa Claus and just actually going, you know, bat crazy for this card, because we've already seen all versions of this start to move up in terms of value. So I want to point this out right now and say we have a defense class Kaiju that you can ram your Exceed into, and you can turbo out Zeus. That is literally it. That is why they play this, and it is strictly for purely. Okay, interesting enough. Next up is the Herald of the Abyss. Now, this is very interesting. For those of you that don't know or you've recognized this card, let's pay 1,500 life points to declare one monster type and attribute. Your opponent must send one face-up monster with the declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard, if possible. For the rest of this turn, your opponent can activate the effects of monsters with the sent monster's name. You can only activate one Herald of the Abyss per turn. Well, Nor says it is immune to the activated effects of your opponent. But this is another one of those class cards that force you, the player, to interact with things. The way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has kind of turned its head here, at least with the OCG ruling with this card, is you pay the 1,500 life points, you declare the effects, and then your opponent, hi, that's me, then has to cry themselves to sleep that they have to take this huge Nor that they just put all this time and effort into and put it into the graveyard. It is a rather simple, effective solution. I mean, next to Kaijus and things that you can kind of handle, but we've seen huge ripple buyouts for this card. So, once again, I wanted to say, hey, people are looking more and more of these purely options, and they're really, really, really giving these some massive considerations for things to clean up. So, that's another big heavy hitter. Next up is the Retaliating Sea. Oh boy. When your opponent activates a spell card that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monster's quick effect, special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way while this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Earth insect monster with 1,500 or less stacked from your deck. I really wish we could search Max C with this. Don't get me wrong, but the biggest thing with this is, so your opponent activates any of their purely cards in the world, and then, you know, they would discard on, you know, resolution, but your opponent just activated, so you can go ahead and chain this. This will touch down. If they would choose to do the purely special, then they'd have to discard a card, which they would lose their Volcanic Shield, their Dark World, their Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Any of these particular cards that they're playing as these combo pieces to allow them to set up and generate advantage instead of discarding. And actually, now that you've got this up and running, now the spell cards can't go to the graveyard, so now the purely monsters can't actually attach from the graveyard. This is another one of the cards that are designed that are starting to see a little bit of side deck play in the OCG. Actually, I think I saw maybe 1 or 2 builds that were trying to main deck this, but once again, you have underlining Max C synergy here. A lot of these choices are going to depend on how crazy you start to see a takeoff here in purely as a deck. And I mean, to be honest with you here, you're seeing a lot of counterplay in all 3 of these. Next up is Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries Ultimate Rare Edition. Now, the reason I bring this up is the OCG has had a very, very, very huge uptick in this card. I mean, they're hitting Nor, they're hitting Vanquish Soul with this. Vanquish Soul effectively turning into like a one-card combo interruption, laugh at your opponent, is actually pretty insane in terms of value. The reason why kind of to consider this is I don't think that this will have an explosion or a resurgence of things here, but when you have an OTS Ultimate Rare sitting in like the dumpster bins out here, I like to bring up the fact that, hey, the OCG's doing this. We could see some sort of turnaround, some sort of crazy spike for this. Just kind of be aware that we're sitting in some of the lowest price points that we have seen for an Ultimate Rare. Now, once again, you still are messing around with, you know, it being a Ghost Girl card. You always got to keep in mind that when you take a look at some of these Ghost Girl cards and some of these prices, they really do get out of hand. And once again, some of these OTS Ultimate Rares really do hit some of the bottom barrels. So if this does end up going crazy, at least you were aware of OCG implications, and if you decided to pick up a set, whether for better or for worse, you at least have a nice looking set of Ghost Sisters to have. Next up is the whole Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Now this is quite comical to me here for what the OCG has been doing with this. So the OCG with Purely is actually playing this as a discard outlet because your actual graveyard effect for this lets you banish it to add a Crystal Beast monster and a field spell, redact your hand. So they're actually playing the little Cobalt Eagle with this, so you can go ahead and discard this off of your Purely card, do your whole special summon, go ahead and banish it, go get your field spell for Purely, and which will further allow you to set up. It's some pretty major deck thinning. Yeah, you do have to play a couple of bricks, but I mean, whether or not you're opting to play like Volcanic Shell or some of the other cards that kind of came with this, in terms of like, do I want a Shaddoll draw, do I want a Brow draw, all of those extra cards are just little draw ones. This at least thins out a lot of extra bricks. Knowing my luck, I'm going to draw the Cobalt Eagle actually playing this. It's like my only major complaint about this package is the semi-bricks that you get, but that means that you don't have to search for the Purely field spell on a certain excavation. You can actually grab something else. This just kind of gives you a more narrowed window in terms of capitalization for what you would want to pull. And I actually think that that's actually a pretty good thing to have with this deck. So Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, extremely, extremely available. And I mean, the deck plays 3 of it. Next up is Elemental Hero Prisma. I hope that Prisma gets a reprint because this price tag is ridiculous. You have Geek Guardian shenanigans running around out here with this. You have Edison format, Gladiator Beast implications, and to top things off, Visus Stroud Scareclaw interactions, where you activate a hero lives, Prisma dumps the Visus. Congratulations, you can go ahead and link off your Prisma on in to the Scareclaw link one, and then proceed to do full combo. Yeah, it is actually one of the craziest things that I've seen in terms of extensions and in terms of price tags. But when you have so many implications out here, and you know, as soon as Mana Dome starts to get unveiled out here, more and more players are going to start to kind of take advantage of this and pay attention to this. So heads up, if you've looked at any of like the extension decks or any of the Scareclaw full combo decks, this is going to be something that feels very, very necessary for a lot of that. And the last big thing I want to talk about is Small World here. Small World, whether it be from the Megatin version or the original version of it, how many decks at this point in time have we seen that have been exploring this card? Small World as of late has turned into a massive math mech searcher. The OCG started to, you know, use this in Vanquish Soul, and I'm kind of starting to be, you know, pretty curious as more and more time goes on here if, you know, having a set of these is going to be a mandatory thing for the game. You know, you want to make sure that this is one of those cards that you have a set of just in case, you know, you decide to play what turns out to be the evolving list of playable decks with this. And I think that's really going to kind of set the stage kind of going forward here, you know, if you want to make sure that you do have these for possible consideration. I assume that we'll probably see another reprint for this, but you know how Yu-Gi-Oh players are. It should be an OTS ulti, honestly, at some point, but we'll have to wait and see. So what do you guys think? Please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think. See your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace.
Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.